Welcome. This video is documenting the prediction that famous singer-songwriter Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel will slip and fall and severely injure his head on December 19th, 2025. The post date on the social media platform that you are watching this video on proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email and forensic notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. If you have already watched this introductory information regarding November 27th, you can skip ahead no more than precisely 10 minutes. Welcome. This video that you are watching was produced prior to November 27th, 2025, when prior to this date, it was predicted that Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel, the famous singer and songwriter, would slip and fall and severely injure his head on this November 27th, 2025 date, Thanksgiving. This is because God's signs, his true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, overwhelmingly indicated that November 27th would be extremely important regarding this trail of signs leading to the date that Paul Simon will slip and fall and injure his head, which is now predicted to be December 19th, 2025, 22 days after November 27th. That's why the clear and relevant signs that occurred on November 27th that related to Paul Simon revealed adding 22 more days to reach December 19th. The signs we received on November 27th are explained in other videos in more detail. But for the sake of this introduction here, I will briefly describe them. But before I do, the key thing to understand here is that when Paul Simon slips and falls and injures his head on December 19th, it will prove that all of the analysis in this video for November 27th is 100% correct and true. That's the purpose of this prediction. In other words, the reason why God does this, why he lays out a trail of signs, it is in order to elaborate on the prophetic signs, because none of the prophetic signs can be properly or fully understood without their context and connections to the other prophetic signs. It is through these connections and context that God is able to tell these stories and themes. And God does this in order to relay extremely important information and knowledge that everyone needs to know. And everyone needs to know how and why God pointed in advance to November 27th, why he did so. And it is explained in these videos that talk about God pointing to November 27th. Now, the skeptic will say, oh, well, you know, he didn't slip and fall on that day. You were wrong. No. When the prediction comes to pass on December 19th, 22 days later, it will prove all of the analysis for November 27th. And therefore, it will prove that God was indeed pointing to November 27th regarding the slip and fall and injury of his head of Paul Simon. And therefore, all of the knowledge that's contained in these stories that were told in the lead up to November 27th are extremely important. And that's why when the prediction comes to pass, the wise person will recognize that they need to watch every minute of every video on this channel, including all of the videos that predicted November 27th. It was not quote unquote wrong. It was 100% correct. And that will be proven to be true when Paul Simon slips and falls and injures his head on December 19th. Now, why the 22 days from November 27th? Well, one of the signs we received on that day was the first American Pope's first trip abroad to 2 nations. And on the plane flight, the news story was that he was gifted the historic bat used by player number 2. The Chicago White Sox player number 2 was gifted to the Pope, the first American Pope, on his first trip abroad to 2 nations. There's much more to that. He was on, for example, his way to the 1700s anniversary celebration of the Nicene Creed. And on that day, one of the 2 National Guardsmen died, who was shot on 17th Street. And on, as explained in the other video. So we have the 2 and 2, number 2's bat and the 2-nation trip. The first American Pope from Chicago hints at the first black president from Chicago, and on and on. And the Pope and Obama are the 2 antichrists, except the first of the 2 antichrists, the Pope, is not Pope Leo, but will be Pope Francis, who will, or is predicted to become or be resurrected in April 2029. That's another subject. Okay, so we have, anyway, the 2 antichrists identified once again in God's signs. Now, Paul Simon was known to be an avid baseball fan. That's one reason why this is relevant. Also, his head injury is symbolic of people's heads being injured and their brains being injured from the things. You know what I'm talking about, the things. And the components in the things make their way to people's brains. And that will ultimately lead to demonic possession, and on, as explained in countless other Paul Simon videos. But the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing, is symbolized by the number 22 in God's signs. And the Antichrists, the 2 Antichrists, will enforce the mark of the Antichrist. The reason why the mark of the Antichrist is symbolized by the number 22 is because the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist is described in the book of Ezekiel, which would have been a Tav mark, and the Tav letter in the Hebrew alphabet is the last and 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The mark of the Antichrist is described in the last and 22nd book out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. Also, the mark of the Antichrist alters a person's chromosomes, and chromosomes come in pairs, and each chromosome has 2 arms, and so 2 and 2, 22. Now, another sign we received on this date was the death of Fuzzy Zoeller, the famous Hall of Famer golfer, professional golfer, Fuzzy Zoeller, who was known for making, and never lived it down for the rest of his life, his racist comment after he had finished the Masters and while Tiger Woods was still playing the Masters on his way to winning his first Masters tournament. The first black player to win the Masters. Again, hints at the first black president, Antichrist. Also, Tiger Woods is the GOAT, greatest of all time, and that hints at the GOAT Antichrist. Now, Fuzzy Zoeller was one of 2 players in the modern era to win the Masters in their first year as a professional. The other player was Tiger Woods. And Tiger Woods is known for his big comeback when he won the Masters 22 years after he first won the Masters in his first year as a professional. And so that's why the death of Fuzzy Zoeller also reveals adding 22 days. Now, there's so much more that's so amazing regarding all of this that is, for one thing, explained in the must-watch, as if all of them are must-watch, as you should know. 2 National Guardsmen shot, 2-nation trip by the Pope video regarding Paul Simon. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. That's the introduction here. Again, like I said, God was pointing to November 27th ahead of time. So the rest of this video will talk about how and why God pointed to November 27th ahead of time. And all of the analysis is 100% correct when the prediction comes to pass 22 days later on December 19th. And so Don't be confused when in this video later on I talk about how Paul Simon is predicted to slip and fall on November 27th. God was saying that. That's what God was saying. It was not, quote unquote, wrong, quote unquote. It was 100% correct. Okay, God was saying that Paul Simon would slip and fall on November 27th. But the way it works, and this is how it works, and I know far better than you or anyone how it works, is that it's not necessarily possible to know ahead of time, ahead of the date that God is pointing to, whether or not it will be the end of the trail of signs for that prediction or another step in the trail. And so November 27th was pointed to, and it was for Paul Simon's trail, and it ended up being a step. Now December 19th might be a step. But at this time, we're going to go with the prediction that Paul Simon will slip and fall and injure his head on December 19th. If it doesn't happen, you can rest assured there will be clear and relevant signs related to it on December 19th. And that said, enjoy the rest of the video. It must be watched. It's extremely important information, all of these videos. Welcome. This video is predicting that famous singer-songwriter Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel will slip and fall and severely injure his head on November 27th, 2025, Thanksgiving Day. And it is predicted that the first reported news of this will be the following day on Black Friday, November 28th. This email thread is titled "The Falls of Senator Fetterman and Paul Simon." But after composing the first email, as you'll see, this title could easily also be include the movie title Wicked. This famous movie in our current time, Wicked, an offshoot of the Wizard of Oz. Fetterman, in his election, beat Dr. Oz. So let's get into this. It's very interesting. The senator from the second state fell and hit his head in the second state outside of his home in the city of Bridges, as in Bridge Over Troubled Water, as in 59th Street Bridge, the songs composed by Paul Simon. Okay, so this fall in the second state of the senator from the second state in the Bridges city is exactly 2 weeks before it is predicted that the composer of Bridge Over Troubled Water will fall and hit his head. So again, second state, senator from the second state, in the second state, exactly 2 weeks. Okay? Now, the second state is Pennsylvania. Simon sang about the Graceland Mansion and the White House Mansion that has 44 plus 44 plus 44 rooms and is located at 4 times 400 Pennsylvania Avenue. The senator from the second state fell in the second state of Pennsylvania 1,104 days after flagpoles with American flags were blown down by strong winds as Fetterman was introducing the 44th president onto the stage at a campaign rally on November 5th, 2022. This was a uncanny prophetic sign. It was a profound prophetic sign. The flagpoles were blown to the ground as he was introducing the Antichrist to the stage, the 44th president. This is relevant to Paul Simon because Paul Simon's song, Graceland, about the mansion was sung by Paul Simon in the White House mansion because it all points to the White House mansion because the king of rock is symbolic of the king Antichrist. And this mansion, the White House, has 44 plus 44 plus 44 rooms and is located at 4 times 400 Pennsylvania Avenue. And in Pennsylvania, 40 plus 14 miles outside of Pittsburgh, where Fetterman fell, the fourth plane on 9/11 crashed and killed 44 people as it crashed into a 40-acre pit because it crashed at a 40-degree angle. Why did the fourth plane kill 44 people in Pennsylvania? Because the White House, in which will dwell the 44th president, Antichrist, is located at 4 times 400 Pennsylvania Avenue. Why the 1,104 days? Why did the senator in the second state fall after the flagpoles fell? With the two dates connected by 1,104 days? And again, they are American flags, obviously. It symbolizes America, and Paul Simon has a famous hit song, America, from his 4th Garfunkel album. But why did the senator fall 1,104 days after the flagpoles fell when he introduced the 44th president, Antichrist? Because 1104, the 1104th composite number is 440 plus 440 plus 440. Which obviously hints at the White House mansion that has 44 plus 44 plus 44 rooms. And again, God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. In general, in his prophetic signs. The 44th president was elected on the date 11/4. And 1104 days from an election campaign rally hints at this. Fetterman ran against Oz. On the same day that Fetterman fell, Ariana Grande was attacked by a fan at the premiere of the Wizard of Oz spin-off, Wicked for Good. Okay, this is the sequel to, so it's Wicked Part 2. So Wicked for Good, which is obviously a hint at the Antichrist. Okay, and so again, Fetterman fell with the number that connects to the number 44 days after the flagpoles fell when he introduced the Antichrist onto the stage in Pennsylvania, because the White House is on Pennsylvania Avenue, 4 times 400 Pennsylvania Avenue. Now, okay, so Fetterman fell on November 13th, and so did Ariana Grande get attacked by a fan on this day. And again, Fetterman ran against Oz, which is why the two are relevant. The coincidence of the two things on the same date, that's why it's relevant. So this date was 11 months and 22 days after the date 11/22, when the movie Wicked, the first one, was released. November 22nd, 2024. This 11/22 date is 11 months and 22 days before Fetterman fell and Ariana Grande was attacked. By the way, she was attacked in Lion City, the nickname for Singapore. And of course, in The Wizard of Oz, one of the main characters is a lion. In the Bible, in prophecy, a lion is symbolic of Christ, who will, as it is described in Isaiah chapter 31, come down on Mount Zion in Jerusalem and defeat the Antichrist. And come down, I should say, as a lion, as a roaring lion. All right. So why the 11 months and 22 days to the 11/22 date? Well, 22 divided by 11 equals 2. This was the day that the senator from the second state fell in the second state. And this is exactly 2 weeks before Simon's predicted fall. Okay, now 11/22/2024 was exactly 4 plus 4 plus 4 months. Again, God repeats the number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. This hints at the 44th president. But anyway, this release of the movie Wicked was exactly 4 plus 4 plus 4 months after the same date in 2023 when we had the prophetic sign at the bridge that cost $4 million. Now, Fetterman fell in the city of bridges, as I mentioned. Paul Simon is, of course, associated with bridge through his big popular hit Bridge Over Troubled Water. And that's what this bridge I'm talking about is. The Rainbow Bridge spans the Niagara River right near Niagara Falls, which is certainly troubled water. It's astounding that the bridge cost $4 million because in God's signs, a bridge is the same symbolic meaning as a door. And a door is the symbol that is the 4th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And the way in which God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel, is it works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. But if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together. And I know what those numbers are because I have been studying his big picture of signs from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 7 years. But this was realized a long time ago. It didn't take 7 years to know this. It's the foundation, the building blocks of God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, pairings of 23 and 44. Why? Because the 44th president is the basketball president who wore number 23 in high school. There's other reasons for 23 and 44, but we'll just leave it at that for now. Now, this $4 million bridge sign was when a car drove at high speed and jumped into the air in a suicidal manner. I mean, that was the term used in the media articles. It was the suicidal crash. It seemed like it was a suicide. It was confusing as to what actually happened. But it was a suicidal crash, okay? This is how the media reported it. And it leaped into the air and then slammed into one of the customs tolls before going onto the bridge at the border crossing. Okay? And it was a $4 million bridge. When it was originally built, it cost $4 million. Obviously, that was a long time ago because $4 million isn't that much for a bridge these days, especially one like the Rainbow Bridge. And by the way, it's called the Rainbow Bridge. Oh, and by the way, I didn't realize that until just now. Wow. Whoa. This always happens, too. The most profound things tend to come when I'm reading the information and just going over it another time. Wow. It's the Rainbow Bridge. Does that ring a bell? What are we talking about? We're talking about the Wizard of Oz. Somewhere over the rainbow. One of the most famous songs of all of history. And definitely a theme in God's signs, including, incidentally, because it's from prophecy. And why is it from prophecy? Well, the sign regarding God's judgment is the rainbow. When does it occur? After the flood. Niagara Falls is symbolic of the flood in God's signs. It involves also the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River and was involved for over 100 years and was involved in the most dramatic rescue in the history of Niagara Falls, and that's symbolic of the ark that rescued Noah and his family. And Niagara Falls engenders a perennial rainbow, which is hence the name for the bridge that's near it, the Rainbow Bridge. So the Rainbow Bridge connects with that cost $4 million, connects with 4 plus 4 plus 4 months to the release of the movie Wicked, which is an offshoot of the movie Wizard of Oz, which is about a rainbow. Well, at least the aspirations of Dorothy is. And yes, I mean, you know, in a sense, the land of Oz is somewhere over the rainbow.
It's just amazing. Now, this is just amazing. This is total confirmation. I mean, I already knew this was confirmed, but now it's really confirmed, right? It's not just random. This 4 plus 4 plus 4 months after the crash that was suicidal into the $4 million bridge that's called the Rainbow Bridge. I'm just repeating it again and again because I'm just overjoyed here with the discovery here. But also everything else is confirmed, including, for example, how the crash into the $4 million bridge, which, by the way, the crash of the car, the passengers were on their way to a KISS concert. And KISS is a 4-letter word. And so that's a 44 right there, $4 million bridge and KISS. There's more to the 4 here, though, as I'll explain in a second. But speaking of KISS, the founder of KISS, Gene Simmons, hints at Paul Simon, and Gene hints at the genes of which those who take the thing are altered, thus making them marked, as in the mark of the Antichrist. And by the way, that's another reason for the number 23, is the 23 pairs of chromosomes that are altered through. Anyway, the reason for the KISS also is not just the name Gene Simmons. And by the way, Gene Simmons took his name from the colleague of Elvis Presley, Jumpin' Gene Simmons, who had one hit, Haunted House, and opened concerts for Elvis, the King, and was with the King while he was at Sun Records. But anyway, so Jumpin' Gene Simmons hints at the Jumpin' car here on its way to the KISS concert. Now, what was I going to say? Yes, the KISS band members. I mean, the reason for the popularity of the band KISS. Let's not kid ourselves. It's the image. It's the imagery, not the music. Well, I don't know. I don't want to be too arrogant, and I am being arrogant, so I apologize. So anyway, the KISS members are the band. I believe the band is famous because of its costumes, right? Of course it is. And the costumes, well, what are they? They're dressing up as demons. That's what they're doing. And those who take the mark and will become marked because of taking the mark will be demonically possessed after the demons cross over the bridge from the demonic realm into the earthly realm. Which is why this all ties to Paul Simon too, with bridge over troubled water. Demonic demons coming from crossing over the bridge from the demonic realm. Okay, so, and that's why Jumpin' Gene Simmons and all that. Genes, Simmons, Simon, right? Okay, now, so anyway, the suicidal crash into the $4 million bridge on its way to a KISS concert, 4 letters, it was exactly 2 times 30 years, which ends it to 23, making it a pairing of 44 and 23. After the 4 suicide doors, the event that changed history inside the car with 4 suicide doors. What do I mean? Well, this was the day that JFK was assassinated, and he was shot in the head, and the demonic possession will be the result of the components within the thing that people take that migrate to the people's brains, which will facilitate demonic possession, which is why symbolically Paul Simon will fall and injure his head, which will also parallel how Elvis died from falling and injuring his head. And again, Elvis performed alongside Jumpin' Gene Simmons, okay, and who had only one hit, Haunted House, hinting at demonic possession. And also in the prophecy where it describes people becoming demonically possessed after the demons cross over the bridge, it says that these people will seek to commit suicide, but will not be able to. Hence why they are hence we can assume, hence the implication that they are demonically possessed. But we know that they are from God's prophetic signs. And the reason for this prediction that is from God is to prove what I am saying. And believe me, I know far better than anyone the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God. And it is to prove what I'm saying. I mean, this is overwhelmingly confirmed to be the case and to be a fact through God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, which will be proven to be true when the prediction comes to pass. And this is the purpose of the prediction. And I know better than you the reason the purpose for this prediction is from God is to prove the things that the big picture of signs are proving. And it is to prove that that what's described in the book of Revelation chapter 9 is demonic possession of people who have taken the mark of the Antichrist. Case closed. There's no discussion about what I just said. That's it. End of debate. That's what it means. That's what's going on. That's the purpose of this prediction. It's to end any kind of speculation. It's a fact when the prediction comes to pass. That's the purpose of the prediction. Make no mistake. Okay? And to not appreciate this is to not appreciate the purpose of this prediction or this video or video channel. You are wasting your time. You might as well turn off the video now. The purpose of the prediction is to prove what I have just said. That's the purpose of the prediction. It's not for you to go, oh, neat, cool. You were able to know that in advance. God told you or showed you this or something to that effect, and congratulations. No, that's not the purpose of the prediction. It's not for you to go, neat, there's a God. No, that's not the purpose of the prediction. That's one purpose of the prediction for the agnostic atheists, but that's not the primary purpose. There's already an overwhelming amount of evidence for God. The purpose of this prediction is to prove what I am saying. I know better than you the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction. It is to prove this and also the other controversial things that I am saying, including, for example, the identity of the Antichrist. So for the evangelicals that continue and insist on playing the Antichrist guessing game, stop. Quit it. You're wasting your time. God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections has been overwhelmingly revealing this for years. Furthermore, the first of the two antichrists has been revealed in Bible prophecy, including Old Testament prophecy, and I'm not going to explain that here. But there's no need for the Antichrist guessing game because of your incorrect interpretation of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Okay? So stop. It's Barack Obama, case closed. That's the purpose of this prediction. Do you understand? If you don't understand, turn off the video. You don't get it. Maybe you will later. Keep watching if you won't, but you're wasting your time if you insist on continuing playing the guessing game. It's not a guessing game. It's been revealed. God does nothing without informing his servants first. Amos 3:8. Okay, so that's, by the way, why right here, the 4 suicide doors and the first of 4 political assassinations in the 1960s. That's a 44, which points to the Antichrist, the 44th president, who will enforce the mark of the Antichrist, which will cause people to become demonically possessed and then seek suicide and not be able to commit suicide. Okay, now the suicide door car, the Lincoln Continental, had its peak in popularity in the 1960s when there were 4 major political assassinations. The first of the 4 being JFK, who was shot in the head in the 4 suicide door car, the Continental, known for its 4 suicide doors. That's what they were called, because they opened in the opposite direction. So they were called suicide doors. All right, so, and that connects with the $4 million bridge with exactly 2 times 30 years. If you want to go a little deeper too, it's 60 years, and G60, the 60th word of the Greek concordance, is the word for mourning, M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, as in mourning the death of JFK. But it's also a mourning for America. That's another subject. But that's why, you know, Reagan and Trump's slogan, Morning in America, right? Well, mostly Reagan, the 40th president, incidentally. So anyway, let's get back to this. So anyway, yeah, we have this date of the release of the movie Wicked. Now, God pairs 9 and 44 together, too. So this date of the movie of the release of Wicked was 4 plus 4 plus 4 months after the $4 million bridge sign. But it's also 90 months before this date. So that's a pairing of 9 and 44, because the 44th president was inaugurated in 09. But furthermore, the number 9 is the most important number in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. It's from the Bible. It symbolizes God's judgment. So God pairs the number 9 with a bunch of other numbers, including 44. But anyway, so this date here is May 22nd, 2017. Oh, no, sorry. Both of these, this release of the wicked is after both of these signs, okay? So anyway, May 22nd, 2017 was the day of the Manchester Arena bombing, the big terrorist bombing in the Manchester Arena at a concert for Ariana Grande, the American singer. There were 23 deaths. On this same day, Trump became the first president, and God uses firsts for signs, to visit the Western Wall. The Israelites blew trumpets before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. 23 days after the 23 deaths was the Grenfell Tower fire, also in the UK, involving 23 floors, which hinted at Trump because he's known for his tower, Trump Tower. And Trump was born exactly 23 months before Israel was reborn, hence the connections to Trump at the Western Wall and the Trump Tower. But also at the time of these two, also at the time of the Manchester Arena bombing involving the American singer, the American president was a prophetic sign outside of America also. But of course, the bombing would be symbolic of walls of security collapsing. So this is why Ariana Grande, the Manchester Arena bombing, exactly 90 months. Okay? And then again, this date, as I explained, is 11 months and 22 days from this 11/22 date to Fetterman's fall and Ariana Grande being attacked. So there was an attack involving Ariana Grande at the Manchester bombing, and it profoundly connects to the attack of Ariana Grande in the Lion City as she was premiering the new Wicked. If I failed to mention that, I did mention that, okay? And of course, the new Wicked is about Wizard of Oz, and that involves a lion. It's amazing. By the way, I didn't mention it, but it came to me while I was just doing this video also that she was in the Lion City, and it was the Wizard of Oz. That's similar to how it just came to me how we have the Rainbow Bridge connect to the Wicked movie about, Wizard of Oz and a rainbow. So amazing. Now, God is the master creative artist. So now the attack on Ariana Grande on the yellow carpet, because it wasn't a red carpet at the premiere. Of course, that's because the Wizard of Oz involves the yellow brick road. So she was on the yellow carpet. That's uncanny. Because she was on a yellow carpet, we have to examine what God is really pointing to with this attack on Ariana Grande. The unusual thing about it, one of them, is that she's on a yellow carpet and not a red carpet. I mean, even the news articles talked about the proverbial red carpet, but then, mentioned probably later in the details that it was a yellow carpet. But it was still referred to as the proverbial red carpet. So, that's a clue to look at this, right? Obviously, we know from other signs in the past involving God's big picture of signs, he plays on the, color yellow to point to Yellowstone. Oh, what just came to me just now? It just came to me. Another thing. Yeah, of course. It's the yellow brick road. Yellow stone. Yellow brick. Yeah. There's a third thing that just came to me just now. Wow. I mean, okay, so we are definitely talking about Yellowstone. I already knew that, but now we know it for sure because Yellowstone, yellow brick. So, okay, so she was in the Singapore Lion City. I knew it was in the Lion City, but I didn't, maybe I did know it before, but I didn't write it, so probably I didn't. But lion is, of course,
parallel or a hint at Lion City is a hint at the lion in the movie The Wizard of Oz. Now, the attack on the yellow carpet on November 13th, 2025. Now, here we go. Okay, so yeah, God is pointing to Yellowstone, but what for? Well, this attack on the yellow carpet is exactly 267 weeks before this date that God is pointing to regarding Yellowstone and the hit of an asteroid on Earth, which will trigger the eruption of Yellowstone, the supervolcano, which, by the way, is in the 44th state on the 44th latitudinal line, the caldera. The caldera is in the 44th state and on the 44th latitudinal line. That's because the Antichrist will be, the 44th president will be president at the time. And in the crisis after the eruption. Why 267? Well, it is the 29th super semi-prime number. A semi-prime number is a number that is divisible by only two other prime numbers. And God uses this in his signs, and 29 in his signs because it is 9 plus 10 plus 10, which hints at Revelation 9:11, which is the verse that symbolizes the demonic possession of those who take the mark of the Antichrist and then seek suicide but will not be able to find it. And Revelation 9:11 is about the king, Apollyon, a euphemism for Satan. A nickname, a term, a name for Satan. So the red, yellow carpet, it wasn't yellow and red, it was a proverbial red carpet, but it was yellow, is about the arrival of the star. This hints at the arrival of King Apollyon in Revelation 9:11, who is wicked for good, because he's Satan. Okay, and this hints, and this wicked for good also hints at Revelation 9:11. Now, Oz, the Wizard of Oz, is a king. He is essentially a king. He's the ruler of the city of Oz. Now, the reason for the star, so the star arrived on the yellow carpet. She was attacked, Ariana Grande was attacked as she arrived onto the scene, onto the yellow carpet. I mean, that's what red carpets are for, right? For the arrival of the stars. Okay? That's more of a, not just a clue, but confirmation that Yellowstone will be triggered by an asteroid. Because in the book of Revelation, we have the third trumpet, the third angel blew his trumpet. I'm quoting here. The third angel blew his trumpet, and a great star fell from heaven, blazing like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters became wormwood, and many people died from the water because it had been made bitter. What that is about and why it ties to Yellowstone is because the asteroid is going to trigger the eruption of Yellowstone, but that will induce massive amounts of ash into the atmosphere, which when rained down on the world's fresh water will make it bitter. In other words, poisonous. That's what the metaphor here is in this prophecy. Wormwood is a name for a type of plant that's poisonous. And bitter. It's a bitter plant. The bitter tasting extract is derived from it. Okay? So that's why wormwood, the name of the star. But the star, this is so amazing, right? The star arrived onto the yellow carpet. I mean, God clearly is communicating here that a third of the world's fresh water is going to be made poisonous, and people will die as a result after the star from heaven crashes onto the earth. That's the connection there. And that's how it's going to happen. And it's spelled out for us with this prophetic sign. With Fetterman falling
on the day that the star was attacked as she arrived onto the yellow carpet, which hints at the arrival of the star from heaven in the prophecy that will cause the eruption of Yellowstone, because that's why she arrived on a yellow carpet, which will induce ash into the atmosphere that will circle a third of the earth, hence a third of the waters becoming bitter and poisonous. Stunning this sign is, this Ariana Grande sign. And it also connects with Trump at the wall, the Western Wall, Trumpet, walls of security collapsing in God's judgment after trumpets were blown, on the day that the American singer performed at the bombing, the terrorist attack. It's just stunning. I'm just repeating myself now because she was attacked at the bombing, or the concert was attacked, and then she was attacked, and we had the profound connections. How much more interesting do you want the signs to be? Now, Revelation 9 describes a volcanic eruption. So this is after what I've just described. I was in chapter 8 with the star, wormwood. The Revelation 9 describes a volcanic eruption, quote, and the heads of the horses were like lions' heads. Another reason for Lion City, by the way, Singapore. And fire and smoke and sulfur came out of their mouths. By these three plagues, a third of mankind was killed by the fire and smoke and sulfur coming out of their mouths. The mouths is a metaphor for the volcanic crater. The fire, smoke, and sulfur is the volcanic eruption. And this kills a third of mankind. Well, we just saw that in the prior chapter in the prophecy about the third of the water becoming poisoned. And that's because of the third of the earth that will be covered by the volcanic ash, which is, by the way, also described in the prophecy. It describes how the sun and the starlight of the sun and the moon and the stars will be blocked out, a third of it will be blocked out. That's how we know that the ash will cover a third of the earth's atmosphere. Unfortunately, I'm sure it will be the northern hemisphere where most people live. And so a third of mankind will be killed because of it, as it says right here in this prophecy. So make no mistake, right? Now, these horses in the prophecy are also said to have stingers on their tails. That's because it's alluding to the thing, the VACCINE, the mark of the Antichrist. And do I need to remind you what I said earlier about the reason and purpose for this prediction? Which is to prove what I have just said. Case closed. It isn't a supposed precursor to the mark of the Antichrist. It is the mark of the Antichrist in its current form. It does not need an additional something to go with it, such as an additional technology or false form of religious worship. For those who are wise, it did come with a false form of religious worship. And it does not need a supposed new age of dispensation after supposedly all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. In fact, one of the main reasons why the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is that it is in fact judgment for this particular doctrine. The Nicolaitan doctrine of our day that Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of his doctrine, which is dispensationalism, which is the package in which free grace or cheap grace comes in. Once saved, always saved. With its close cousin, sovereign grace, and its package, Calvinism. That is the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day, and that is also a controversial thing that is a fact when this prediction for Paul Simon comes to pass. No discussion. I hope you appreciate that. If you are a Calvinist, or if you believe in once saved, always saved, for example, you're wrong. If you believe the mark needs an additional something, you're wrong. It's not correct. And for the commonly held objections that people have based on their understanding of Bible prophecy, I answer them in the must-watch Snakebite video. But make no mistake, when the prediction comes to pass, you will know that you are wrong or incorrect about your understanding of the Bible prophecy, which says to you that it can't be the mark of the Antichrist. Now, that said, there's nowhere in Bible prophecy that says that one cannot repent after having taken the mark of the Antichrist. Another thing that's misunderstood in evangelical culture. All right, now, so let's move on. The movie Wicked, for Good, is the second Wicked movie. The attacker was taken down to the ground on the yellow carpet. But by the way, that's another thing. That's an allusion to the falling star, the asteroid. The attacker was taken down onto the ground on the yellow carpet, which also hints at the asteroid hitting the Earth and then it causing the eruption of Yellowstone. The attacker was taken down to the ground on the yellow carpet. At the premiere on the same day that the senator from the second state fell in the second state, and the senator ran against Oz, Dr. Oz. Wicked is a spin-off of The Wizard of Oz. Ariana Grande's attacker was taken down as she made her entrance onto the yellow carpet, and American flagpoles fell down as Fetterman made the way for Obama's entrance to the stage. Another parallel, which hints at Obama's entrance as in his second presidency, when he will become wicked for good as the Antichrist, the second of two Antichrists. And he is the second of the two. It's not the other way around. The Wizard of Oz was released on August 25th, 1939, exactly 188 plus 188 plus 188 months before the release of Paul Simon's Graceland album on August 25th, 1986. This is a profound connection because God frequently uses this number, 188, to point to H188 in Strong's Hebrew Concordance, which is the word for woe exclamation mark that is used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. And God repeats the number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. And so we have this repetition of 188. Whoa. And by the way, the demonic possession is the first of the 3 woes described in the Bible prophecy. Now, and this is, of course, connecting to Paul Simon, who is known for a bridge over troubled water. Now, August 25th, 1986, the release of Graceland was 13,960 days before Fetterman fell. The 1,396th, which is what it hints at, you take away the 0, we get this number 1,396, and the 1,396th composite number is 1,656, which is a number God uses frequently in his signs because it symbolizes the flood. Because the flood began 1,656 years after Adam, which is an allegory. It's a story. It's not actually in my opinion, a literal 1,656 years. And that's another subject. But so that's the flood. What is the flood? It's a weather event which hints at a tornado and the Wizard of Oz. I mean, the plot of the movie is about a weather event that changes everything, right? It's the storm and the tornado in the Wizard of Oz. That's why this connection is extremely relevant. So we have the Wizard of Oz connecting profoundly to the release of Paul Simon's Graceland. And by the way, the song Graceland is about traveling down the road. This just came to me. This just came another example. This is serious, though. I mean, this is true. This is amazing. Paul Simon's song is about traveling down the road. I mean, the first lyric says it all. The Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar. He's talking about his journey down the highway. And then the next verse is, I was traveling down the highway, blah, 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 blah. I forget the words. But so he's on his way to Graceland. He's not in Graceland. He's on the way to Graceland traveling down the road. Well, what's the Wizard of Oz about? It's about a road. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I already knew it connects, right? But now we know for sure. Okay. So, and we know Fetterman connects with Oz. So the release of Graceland connects to the fall of Fetterman. And we know Paul Simon is going to fall. And so that's why the Fetterman fall is relevant too. But we know that this all connects to Oz now because of the number of days hinting at the flood and the storm and the tornado in The Wizard of Oz. Fetterman beat Oz, and he fell, and in other words, Oz fell to Fetterman. And Fetterman fell in the second state on the day of the premiere of Wicked 2, and the sign that points to the coming asteroid, on the sign on the yellow carpet that points to the coming asteroid and the eruption of Yellowstone. And these signs are exactly 2 weeks before Simon's predicted fall. Oh, and by the way, The Wizard of Oz is about a fall. Think about it. Another one. This is the 5th example now. It's just all coming out as I'm going through this now. The movie The Wizard of Oz is about a fall. What am I talking about? Think about it. You know what I'm talking about. The house that fell on the Wicked Witch. It hints at the fall of Fetterman, who beat Oz, and Simon's fall. And Simon's Graceland is about traveling down the road. I mean, think about it. The woman, the Wicked Witch, the Wicked Witch of the East is smashed. Probably her head is hit first, obviously, because the house falls on top of her. So the house fell on her head. And Simon is predicted to fall and injure his head. Yeah, this is amazing. This is amazing. Now, what more can we get out of this? Because, there were 2 wicked witches, weren't there? We got the 2 weeks connection. Yeah. There we go. There we go. Amazing. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or 2 that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus.
Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.